Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Dustin Fox, Jason Lloyd, Tyvis Powell, plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
Sometimes you can plan and you know exactly what you're going to talk about, and then literally 30 seconds before the show comes word that Myles Garrett has requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. This according to Ian Rappaport. Do I have that? I want to make sure I get the right attribution.
Yep. Yeah, Ian Rappaport tweeted it out. Myles just sent out the statement. Steve's going to have this in tag board here in 1 second. Steve, if you want to take tag board full, please. This is from Ian Rappaport as of literally 1 minute ago. Breaking reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year and Brown star Myles Garrett has requested a trade.
Wow.
Exclusive statement, and I quote from Myles Garrett. As a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl, and that goal fuels me today more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this one of the toughest decisions of my life. These past 8 years have shaped me into the man that I am today. While I've loved calling this city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton, and it has always been to compete and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns.
And he's done it in the most public manner possible, which is what stands out to me. Jason, what stands out to you? G, what stands out to you?
First thing that stood out to me was he put right in a statement something Andrew Berry said. Andrew said he's going from Cleveland to Canton. And Myles said, nope, that was never my intent to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete and win a Super Bowl. And the Browns, in all of their time with Myles Garrett, have not come close to doing that.
Are you surprised he did it this publicly?
No.
Wow.
No, I'm not.
I mean, that to me, that sounds like irrevocable differences, whatever. How you?
Yeah, irreparable.
This can't be saved. He's publicly asked for a divorce.
G's talked about it. I've talked about it. There's no sense hiding it now. He was going to sit down with me 2 years ago and talk about how unhappy he was. The first year of the Deshaun trade, when the suspension was increased to 11 games, he was really aggravated with where things were at. And we were going to have a conversation about it. He pulled it the last minute and said, no, we're not going to do it. And I was like, okay. And Garrett's mentioned at multiple turns that he wasn't going to spend his career riding away. He wasn't going to be a next Joe Thomas. And, you hope that they could figure this out. They could have turned the corner with Deshaun. It didn't happen. And the franchise is in a really rough spot right now. There's no getting around that with the lack of first-round picks they've had over the last couple of years. Obviously, the Deshaun thing's been a disaster. There's holes up and down the roster. They're in a tough spot. And with no clear, great quarterback available in this draft to them, I can't sit here and say that I'm surprised. He's hinted at this. He hinted at this all season long toward the end of the season. How can anyone be shocked today? I'm not.
I think the thing that now makes perfect sense, but was a bit of a smokescreen, was when he said we're not that far away and expect an announcement soon. Well, one of two things happened. Either he was filled in on the Browns' plans to get out of this hole and he wasn't satisfied with it, or when he said expect an announcement soon, he already had made up his mind and he knew he was going to publicly ask for a trade before the draft. G, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I've done multiple blogs about this. I mean, you can go back, and we dated this back to all the way last year, a couple of years before. And, I said, look, man, y'all got to realize something. Be careful what you wish for. A lot of people at the time was like, yeah, listen, we're losing these games. And I said, losing has consequences. And when you are playing and when you see your mortality in front of you, and when you are a player of Myles Garrett's caliber, it looks like he's by some publications going to be Defensive Player of the Year again. It just shows that, look, guys want to win football games. And this is the problem that a lot of people have seen with the Cleveland Browns organization, is the fact that they're always resetting. Always another 3 to 5 year plan. Always another, and you could go back all the way back to 2000. There's always this thing, do we have a quarterback? Don't we have a quarterback? Is it the head coach or the GM? We got to switch this out, swap this out. The culture is getting better. It don't take you 25, 30 years to build a culture, man. And if you're Myles Garrett, you look around the league and you watch teams go from worst to first every single year. You watch other teams seem to be able to put it together, and yet and still the Cleveland Browns at this late stage in his career went 3-something. That's crazy. And so, what I would like to caution people is to do is, like, when you hear this, don't jump up and down and be like, wow, we get these picks. That's not what you're supposed to be rejoicing about. And I love Abdul Carter, but please save the tweets online about how Abdul Carter will come in and do just as good as Myles
Well, there's
Garrett.
no use getting Abdul Carter now. He's a piece. He's not the centerpiece.
Yeah, when you lose a generational player, it takes you 3 to 4 years to figure out what the heck are we going to do now. And sometimes you never recover from it. Sometimes people still struggle with it. So for me, I knew this was coming. It was a thing that was always something that was always in the ether. Like I said, I don't even have many sources, but I said 2 years ago, I was like, I know from a very good source he's not going to be Joe Thomas. So this is not the party train that you guys are going to want to hear.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I'm surprised it took this long, number one. Number two, if you compare the personalities of Joe Thomas and Myles Garrett, and this is not to disparage in any way the personality of Joe Thomas was a guy that never publicly prioritized winning a Super Bowl as one of his big things. He did his job. He went out and dominated his man just about every snap that he played in the NFL. It's one of the greatest to ever do it. But I always got the sense from watching, listening, and observing Myles Garrett, both on the field and off, that was not going to be him. He did not want to spend his career chasing greatness as a team while achieving it individually and one day ending up in Canton, but never getting any sort of team accolades. Now comes the question, what the Browns do from here. We've discussed on this show, because we've known that this has been a possibility for a long time. I'll ask you guys, what's the asking price?
Well, hold up. Before we get to that, I want to ask you guys this real quick. Andrew Berry said last week, and Jay, this is where you went on your Abdul Carter number 2.
Yes.
What you thought it meant. He said, I'm not going to entertain any trade offers from Myles Garrett.
Yes, he did.
We're not trading him. Now, obviously, Myles has now changed the course of the direction of this conversation by making the request. But, Jason, just because he makes a request, does Andrew Berry have to trade him? Do the Browns have to trade Myles Garrett? Or
No.
is this a power struggle that, just because he asked out?
I think
could
they'd be
this
stupid
resolved?
not to at this point.
You don't have to trade him.
No, you do not have to trade him.
You need to.
But what comes next is he says, well, I'm not playing.
Well, he could. I mean, what comes next is you sit down and you have another conversation with him and his agents and.
Explain your plan, maybe?
Well, I mean, you try and throw a lot of zeros in front of him and see if that changes his mind.
Yeah.
And
I think he looks foolish now if he does change his mind.
he's got. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that he's going to change his mind. He's got, 2 years left, right? I think he's got 2 years left under control.
And I thought when Berry said he wasn't going to trade him, that signified, hey, an extension's coming. We talked about, will he be the highest paid non-quarterback in football? Mm-hmm. And I guess maybe those conversations didn't go that well either.
The reality is you're 53-78 with Myles Garrett on the roster.
Exactly.
And Garrett's right. He's a generational player. He will probably go down as the greatest pass rusher maybe ever. But he's not a quarterback, and you haven't won with him.
You're right.
So you have to. I wrote about it right toward the end of the season that you have to explore this, because if nothing else, it gives you the ammo. It's not necessarily using the draft picks to add talent to the roster. It's using the draft picks to put you in position to try yet again to swing at quarterback. And yeah, you could take a quarterback at 2 this year. Everybody's telling you these quarterbacks aren't very good. Are they wrong? Maybe. Maybe they're wrong. Lamar Jackson went at the bottom of the first round. A lot of teams passed on him. Maybe they're wrong, and Shedeur Sanders is the answer. But if you like the quarterbacks in next year's draft better than you do this year's draft, trading Myles Garrett now gives you the ammunition to move up and down the board in 2026, when at this point, again, it's all the risk. Everything about this is a risk.
Yeah,
but the quarterback class looks better next year than it does this year. You get Abdul Carter at 2 this year. You stay right there. You get the edge rusher to replace Myles Garrett, and you have the draft capital next year to move up and down the board and go get a quarterback in 26. I believe this is a multi-year rebuild of the Browns. Like, once the Deshaun Watson thing flamed out, it became a complete teardown and overhaul of the rest of the roster. And I think Myles Garrett just told you the same thing today.
And I think this is, I like your point about it goes back to the Deshaun Watson trade. I do think that Myles was convinced, because I do think if he said he was willing to sit down with you and talk about his future, that tells me he was already thinking about it at that time, and perhaps
Absolutely.
he was already judging that trade as not being the magic bullet they needed. So for me, this is just more collateral damage of the worst transaction in sports history. I think losing Myles Garrett now can be in the loss column from making this trade.
Could be, yeah.
And that is the danger of, and I know the theory was you can't win without a quarterback. You have to have a quarterback. They went so all in on getting that quarterback that ended up not being the answer. It's punitive in so many ways. The player they got flamed out. Everything they gave up is set them back 3 to 5 years. Later in the show, we're going to do a topic on, are the Browns the worst position franchise in the NFL right now? Because this is coming off a podcast that ranked them and ranked the Browns dead last in terms of positioning for the future. And I have maintained if they're not dead last, they are indisputably in the conversation for the bottom 3 in the league.
Well, let's talk about this. When Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry came here, right? When they got here, they were positioned great. They had a quarterback. They had Nick Chubb, one of the best running backs in the game. They had Myles Garrett, one of the great pass rushers in the game. They had Denzel Ward, right? And in 5 years, you don't have none of that no more.
Now, G, you're right. And that's why I've always said we'll never know the answer to this question. But in the answer lies the path out of this. Who is most responsible for number 4? Was it owner going to GM saying, make this happen? Was it GM going to owner? And that matters, G, because if it was GM convincing the owner, GM has to go.
But what we got to also understand, you can't talk about 4 until you get to 6. Who made the decision on Baker Mayfield that he was not good enough to play, and they moved on from him? Because that's the starting point.
Well, I agree with you. You're right, because that is the impetus to going out to getting Deshaun Watson.
That's the catalyst for going to get Deshaun
you're right.
Watson.
Now, I remember Kevin Stefanski made a comment after the trade was made that he felt he could have won with Baker Mayfield. So based on that information, I certainly don't think Kevin was beating anybody's door down. We got to get 6 out of here. He's not the answer. Someone in the organization made the assessment that you just talked about. Somebody said, we need 4 because 6 isn't the guy. And what we don't know, but they do know it inside the doors at Berea, what the fans and the media don't fully understand, that I think we need to understand how this played out before we can have a grasp of how you fix this mess. I really think it's important to find out who was driving the train on running 6 out of town and who was driving the train bringing 4 to town.
I don't want to relitigate this whole thing.
I know you don't, but Jason, I think ultimately that's...
This is important to understand. Baker stopped taking their calls. This relationship had eroded so badly.
Can I ask you a question? Didn't that come after the rumor came that they were talking to Deshaun Watson? Because in my timeline it did.
No, it came after he hurt his shoulder, and they told him he didn't have a very good year, and he basically told them, well, screw you. I shouldn't have been out there playing anyway. And he sent Jimmy Haslam's calls to voicemail. He would not return Kevin Stefanski's calls. When the quarterback stops talking to you...
You're right. No, you're right. That's a sign that he wants to go.
So, and that's why, once you go down this rabbit hole, it's impossible to get out of it, because there's a lot. I believe there's fault on both sides of this. I've always thought that, and I never thought
usually is.
I never thought Baker was good enough, and I'm not going to run from that now. I still don't think he's good enough.
Yeah,
I still don't think he's good enough.
I know you don't. I know you have said that.
So that's why it's the most important position in all of sports, and they looked at it and said, here's an opportunity to get a once-in-a-generation talent. These guys never become available. We're going to go for it. Who ultimately was the decision maker? You're never, like I've told you everything that I know. Barry was on board first in Philly, and Jimmy's the one that wanted to guarantee the whole thing. Like,
Right.
That's what I know to be true. And at some point, I think Barry wanted to stop pushing in that direction, and Jimmy said, we're all in now, we're going to keep going. But all of that has led us to the more
this
important
point.
part of where we are today.
Yeah.
And my
It's
thing
not a
is-
good place.
And my thing is, when Myles Garrett met with Andrew Barry, what about his plan? What about his plan turned him into like, yeah, I'm gonna write that note now.
Yeah.
Like can we get anything read for the tea leaves? Okay. Did he tell him, hey, we're not drafting the quarterback in this draft? Hi?
I don't know.
Did he say, hey, look, we're just going to draft the defensive player? Or maybe they did say, we're going to draft the quarterback, and he's just like, but those guys aren't good. I'd be interested to see what the heck they told him, because it does seem like there's some timing that says, all right, I'm going to put this out there. I'm going to give you enough time between now and the draft to figure out a deal, to get with the most you can. Because he could have dropped this
After the draft.
And you've
He
been
could have done this
screwed.
whenever
Well,
he
no,
wanted.
yeah, it would have killed the Browns. Well, then the Browns likely would have not traded him. They don't have to.
Right.
To your point, Garrett, earlier, what he's about to do, and if the tea leaves are correct, this is what's going to happen Thursday night. Is that when the awards show is? Thursday?
It's typically
NFL awards, NFL honors? I think it's Thursday night. Irregardless, he's likely to repeat as the NFL Defensive Player of the Year, and I say that because the Sporting News has already named him their Defensive Player of the Year, and more often than
It is
not,
Thursday.
the
Correct.
AP awards mirror the Sporting News awards. So if you think about what he's on the precipice of doing, he's about to win back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year awards, and that's impressive enough because it's something that typically does not happen on either side of the ball. What's mind-blowing to me and makes this even more, I guess it's good for the Browns now because it's on his resume. He did it with a 3-win football team, which I thought, Jason, automatically ended any campaign he might have for becoming Player of the Year.
Last year when we sat here and had this discussion, everybody eliminated Max Crosby
I know they
because he
did.
played on a bad team.
Yeah.
And now if Myles wins it, it's the exact same parameters.
Which tells you how much better he has to be than everybody else.
And it feels like there's no slam dunk great candidate.
the Vegas odds don't. I mean, Miles is a plus 1,000 to win, or last check. So
Yeah.
they have Surtain as the favorite for what it's worth.
I know, but I'm saying that when the Sporting News last week announced their winner, and historically, the Sporting News winner is a precursor to who wins the AP award.
I think PFF said that he would. I don't know if they got an award or something, or he was just the highest rated defensive player or something like that. Which may play a part in it or may not. I just think, the most intriguing part of this is Myles Garrett is, from my recollection, he's going to be one of the most sought after defensive players since people tried to get Reggie White when he was a free agent.
I agree with that. I do. I think that's the right name too. So let me go back to my question from 10 minutes ago. What's the asking price?
To start that off, just two comparison deals, but Khalil Mack, when he got traded, was 27 years old.
Yep.
He got traded from Oakland to Chicago. In that deal, the Bears gave up 2 first-round picks,
Which I think is
a
appropriate.
third-round pick, and a 6th-round pick for Khalil Mack, a 2nd, and a conditional 5th. At the time, Mack was 2 years younger than Myles Garrett currently is, and both will be looking for a new contract. So Mack at 27 went for
And had
2
Mack
firsts.
had a Defensive Player of the Year award by that point? He did, right? Was he?
I
coming-
can double check when I have a third hand to
Okay.
type and look it up.
Okay.
I only have 2 hands. But 27-year-old, needing a new contract, was traded for 2 firsts, a 3rd, and a 6th. Myles, 29, potentially coming off 2 DPOYs. So what do you think? Is that the starting point for any negotiation?
I think it has to include at least 2
At
number
least 2,
ones.
yeah.
And that's
I don't
that
think
is
you're
the
getting.
starting
I don't think you're getting 3
I don't either.
because he's not a quarterback.
Nope.
But I think.
And the
2
last
is
team to give 3 draft picks for a player.
And by the way,
He did have the DPOY, by the way. You're right.
I thought he was
Khalil
coming
did.
off of
Correct.
or the year before.
It was 2016. He got traded 17, so you're right. Jason, continue.
you don't have to send him to the Lions or the Chiefs.
No, you
You
don't.
can send him to a team. Like, it doesn't have to be the 29th pick in the first. You can send. There's plenty of teams out there that would line up that would take Myles Garrett.
Does he have-
that would hand
does he
over
have a
their
no
first.
trade?
No, not to my knowledge.
I don't think he does either. So, I mean, you could conceivably end up making his life even more miserable. Not that you'd want to do that, but if it's the best deal for the Browns,
I'm gonna tell you how I'm gonna get 3.
you could send him to a bad team to get a really good pick in this draft.
Give me. I'm gonna tell you why we're gonna get 3 first-round draft picks. Because I'm gonna trade him to the Cowboys. And Jerry Jones is getting up there. He's getting older. They had a terrible season last year. Dak Prescott looked like he was confused. He's hurt again. You got CeeDee Lamb locked up. Can you imagine? He's from Texas. He's there. Can you imagine what the news conference will be when you announce Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons? You don't even got to be that doggone good on defense. All you got are offense. All you got to do is put them 2 dudes out there and say block them. Now, look, day picks is going to be less. I want 3 of them because the Cowboys will probably be good next year. And I hope the Eagles win a championship because it's right in the division of what Jerry Jones is going to see. How do you like that, Jerry? The Commanders are balling, the Eagles are balling, and you still suck. Can you imagine? I'm going to get 3 first-round picks for Myles Garrett. He's going to go to Texas. He'll be in the NFC. We ain't got to worry about seeing him. But under no circumstances is he going to the Texans with the Chiefs.
Yeah, don't make the Texans.
None of those guys. I'm not trying to see him. He has to go to the NFC, period, point blank.
What did Von Miller get?
When he was traded from Denver to the Rams, was that the first time he was traded?
I believe so. And I'm just trying to figure.
Well, you're not going to like this. Diana actually just tweeted this.
Rossini?
Diana Rossini. One NFL GM on what a trade for Myles Garrett could look like. Quote, probably a 1+. Can't wait for the it will be 3 1s crowd. Not happening. 1 and a 2.
Are they watching our show?
Yeah, right. 1 and a 2, 1 and 2 3s. Throw a player in there. I still think you get 2
I
ones
think you
for
can
him.
get 2 1s, but I don't know. 3 1s. It would have to be somebody.
Hey.
Look, what is something worth? Whatever someone will
Somebody's
pay for.
willing to pay for
And
it.
I like your logic because if there is going to be a guy that would say, screw it, I'll be dead in 3 years.
Yeah.
It might be Jerry.
It might be Jerry Jones.
That is, Jerry Jones made a splash with Terrell Owens. Jerry Jones went and got Prime, Dion. Jerry Jones dealt with Michael Irvin. Jerry Jones has a penchant for the flair. He does what he does.
That's a fact.
And when you get a guy who's homegrown, that's from there, and you want to win a championship as bad as they do, go ahead. Give me them 3. That we gave up 3 runs for Deshaun Watson. It's funny how it works because all you got to do is say, look, I'm sure there's somebody in your division that would like to give up a couple of 1s for us, Jerry. You'll never win out here.
The one thing I wouldn't do if I was making a trade discussion is mention that we gave up 3s for Deshaun Watson. Because whoever you're making that argument with will say, yeah, and how'd that work out for your organization?
That's an internal memo. That's an internal memo. We said this is our thought. We got sucker for 3 1s.
So now we got to find a sucker.
I'm sure we can find another one out there.
I do think realistically 2 1s can happen, and the reason is he plays the second most important position in the NFL. Most GMs will tell you when you're building your team, you build it with the quarterback, and number 2, you find a guy that can wreck the quarterback, and he is as good as anyone at that spot. They're commodities. And you got to give up something to get one.
And Jason, look at this. We always talk about this all the time. He is the one player actually on the market that some people could talk themselves into. They say, we're 1 player away.
Yeah.
And so, there's all kind of dummies out there. We know that there ain't 5 or 6 teams that's 1 player away.
Right.
But you could talk yourself into 1 player away, especially if you don't have much cap space, especially if you don't have many assets in the draft and you're drafted at the late end of the first round or maybe the second round. He's a guy that you could get excited about and watch how this explode. Here's how it's going to work. Jason, he already mad right now. There's people texting him trying to get a quote on Myles Garrett. Jay, get ready to be doing this all evening on WKYC till the draft starts. Right. People around the league are going to be a buzz because players like this, see what you did, Luka? See what you did? See what you did? They trade Luka Doncic. We was going to talk about that, and all of a sudden, Myles Garrett. Here we go. This is what it is.
Another big trade talk.
Another big one.
Okay, I'll just start throwing names out. If you were to do it for a player and a pick, what about Trey Hendrickson from the Bengals, who's got an issue coming up with his contract, and maybe a pick for Myles Garrett straight up?
No,
he's for the Bengals.
I want the picks, not to draft the players. I want the picks for trade capital to move around the
For
board
next year,
for
really.
next year.
Yeah.
Because again, I told you I'm going to keep saying this until somebody punches me. They care about 2027, guys. They care about the dome. They care about selling tickets to this dome and selling interest in this dome and getting this thing right in time to start selling PSAs in 2027 and 2028 leading into 2029. That's their focus.
Wait till Clevelanders see the price of those PSAs.
And it sucks
Wait,
because
just wait
I know.
until they see it. You
Yep.
might have a situation where you get a nice shiny dome and you have a whole lot of empty seats.
Yeah.
If you're looking for an example of where that's happened, look no further than Yankee Stadium. And by the way, Yankee Stadium, when they made that calculation, they said, we have at our disposal 15 million people that live within an hour of Yankee Stadium. Many of them work on Wall Street. Most of them have huge piles of money. They will come if we build it. Watch a Yankees game in July.
Yeah.
And this is a team that's been relevant.
Yeah.
And their all their good seats behind home plate are empty.
Yep.
And wait, I'm just telling you,
Yeah.
because I've already heard rumors about what it's going to cost.
Go look at Buffalo.
Wait until you see what the cost of going to a Browns game is going to be when they move this thing.
Von Miller got traded for a second and a third round pick, by the way, but he was at the end of a year in his
He had 1 year left, right?
But, yeah. Let me do a read. I'll send it right back to you guys. We can continue this conversation. But FanDuel is back as the official sportsbook partner of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And Super Bowl 59 is right around the corner. One game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with the FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether you're predicting the first touchdown, who will take home the MVP trophy, or the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to place your bets and feel the thrill of every moment. With live betting all game line, you can jump into the action, adjust your bets, and ride the wave of excitement from kickoff to the final whistle. Plus, to make the Super Bowl even sweeter, new customers can score $200 when you make your first bet. Just place a $5 bet, and if you win, you get $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS and bet with FanDuel, an official partner of Super Bowl 59. Guys, on the Myles Garrett thing, I want to mention something that we kind of touched on, but I want to bring it back up. Steve, take tagboard full. In his exact statement, Myles Garrett said, quote, "The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton." You mentioned earlier, but that was the exact wording Andrew Berry used at his end-of-season press conference when asked about Myles Garrett. Is it any kind of extra meaning, you guys think, or anything deeper than surface level to use those exact same words?
I think
He's talking directly to AB.
I agree.
Yeah.
He
talking,
used the exact phrase.
Yeah, there's intent behind that. And I mean, listen, I don't think AB saying that is why he requested the trade. It's much deeper than that. But to use that exact verbiage, to use that exact language and throw it right back at him, yes, that there's intent behind that.
Man, I've been telling people, it's hard when you say this to some people ain't trying to win. And you'd be like, what do you mean they're not trying to win? No, there's like maybe 5 teams every year that are going for it, like really going for it. Not trying to talk about the dome, not trying to sell tickets or make the playoffs. There's 5 teams that are really, really, really trying to go for it. And the sentiment when he was talking about is it ain't about to go from Cleveland to going from Cleveland to Canton. That's skipping your whole career, man. You don't play these types of games and put your body on the line. And I think that was one of the major components that he started to look at. When you are a freak athlete and a freak of nature like Myles Garrett, your body never betrays you. But year after year, he had the car accident. He had the situation with his foot. We thought he may shut it down at some point during the season because of his foot or ankle, whatever the case may be. And so when you start to see your mortality as an athlete and you start to see those years pass and you people say, man, I remember when you came into the league, and you're like, wow, that was a long time ago. And you look around and you're pushing 30. You start to look around and he's looking at Nick Chubb like, wow, that ain't the Nick Chubb I knew. And you start to think to yourself, I got to be about something. I want to win. This ain't about next year or the year after that. This is about winning at the highest level. Do you see how they clown Charles Barkley? Do you see how we treat people? This is the first thing we do to disqualify athletes. He was a great guy, put up stats, Hall of Famer. He was never a winner at the highest level. We hold that against people. So I can't get mad at the brother because He's just telling us what we always tell them. We treat people who are winners and win the championships up here. It's the reason why, even though Peyton Manning and Drew Brees are very good quarterbacks that won Super Bowls, the first thing they get disqualified is because, hey, you were great, but you only won one. Can you imagine what you say to a guy that didn't win any?
Well, you're Joe Thomas.
Yeah, you're Joe Thomas. And you ask Joe Thomas, what do you want, the jacket or the wins? And Joe Thomas says, man, look, I love the gold jacket, but that ring is all about team sports. It's what we play from the beginning of time. That's what we do it for, is that. And that's what he's looking for.
Yeah, and I don't blame him. I mean, we haven't gotten around to this part of it yet, but I don't blame Myles Garrett at all. I'm really surprised, Jay. I'm trying to think of another athlete that is so publicly asked for a trade.
Oh, Kobe.
Oh, you're right.
Kobe went on Stephen A. show and said, I will never play another game in a Lakers uniform.
You're right.
Yeah.
And that turned out okay. So
yeah, it did. Can you remember another guy, though, that has written a letter basically saying, get me the hell out of here?
Carmelo was kind of vocal in Denver. But
Carmelo was vocal. I don't remember to what extent.
And I think at that point, too, Carmelo wasn't.
He Myles Garrett.
He wasn't where Carmelo. Now, Kobe is a great comparison. I'd forgotten all about what Kobe did.
Yeah.
Kobe basically set himself on fire.
Yeah. That was amazing.
It was.
And he stayed.
And he stayed. They worked it out.
T.O. when he played for the Ravens for one day.
Yeah, but that was he wasn't T.O.
Wait, where was T.O. doing push-ups in his driveway?
That was Philly.
Dallas.
That was Philly.
No, that was Philly.
Yeah, that was Philly.
Yeah,
Philly.
Was that
that's
a
my
trade?
quarterback. That was Dallas.
Was that a trade? I don't remember. I just remember him shirtless doing push-ups or
think
sit-ups.
it was
in
a
his driveway.
holdout.
I think they sent him home.
I think it was a holdout.
All right.
But this is big. Okay, not unprecedented, but rare.
Yeah, rare.
And
That's fair.
I think I was texting with Bernie just to get his thoughts. And the first word that he said was "wow."
Mm-hmm.
I think initially this is one of those things, and this happens very rarely, where when you first hear it, it takes you aback and you need a standing 8 count. And then once you get your wits, you're like, well, of course he asked for a trade.
That's why. So if you notice 2 years ago, right? And you knowing this, and you come on it, that's why it was so devastating for me to see them losing these games. Like, when you say, like, you're just hoping, like, you don't want to be 3. When the Deshaun Watson stuff happened, I'm like, okay, listen, he may not be good. We need to at least give me 7 wins. You can stomach a 7, because you can sell, hey, we ain't that far away, we get a quarterback. But when you bottom out at 13, you just knew, like, people think that we're Duke of D-jerks, right? And this is our court of gestures, and we just say stuff. Remember, we were sitting here talking about tearing it down to the studs, and we was like, oh no, this ain't no regular, let's just add 2 or 3 pieces in there. You got some pieces that you're gonna have to actually get to, like, put in place, because you're gonna lose some guys. And now the trickle down theory is here. This is the Reaganomics of football. Now, what does Joe Bitonio say?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised.
What is
Any of the veterans that are
and
perennial Pro Bowlers.
And at that point, what are you doing over his corner then? Why is Denzel Ward over there? Like, if Myles Garrett is gone, what are we doing with all these high-priced veterans? Because we pay the most in money, Jason.
Well, I would not move Denzel. I keep Denzel right where he is. He's
and
still
Denzel
young.
may not want to leave. Denzel is home.
Yeah, I would not entertain that at all. The Myles thing you have to look at. You have to. I wrote about it weeks ago. I thought that they should look at trading him, exploring trading him, because you have got to fix quarterback. Period. Full stop. Whatever it takes.
Yes.
You haven't won anything with Myles, as great as he is. You haven't won shit with him. You
right.
finished ahead of third once. You finished above third place in your division one time.
You've won
with
one
him.
playoff game.
Yeah. So as great as he is, I'm sorry he's not a quarterback. You have got to fix that at any cost, whatever it takes. Joel may retire. Joel may say, "Screw this, man. I'm done. That's enough." He may have done that anyway, even before this Myles thing. He may have had enough.
Mike, you just got my ear and said you have some cap implications. What will this do to the cap?
So Jason from Over the Cap, not our Jason Lloyd, but Jason from Over the
Really
Cap.
good,
who-
really good.
Really good, really smart. Just tweeted this out so you can take it full here. And Jason said, quote, "The Garrett trade would not be very easy for the Browns to work with on their salary cap. He has been restructured every year, which means over $36 million in cap charges if traded. He has a bonus due in March as well." So we're going to end up doing the rock bottom conversation at some point, but this certainly does not help the Browns' chances in any of those. $36 million in cap charges if he's traded, and he would not be on the roster.
I mean, that does go back to the Deshaun thing.
Yeah.
That goes back to the Deshaun thing. And that's why I can't.
I think all of it does, though.
But I can't entertain a conversation that says the Deshaun contract is no big deal against the cap. I know you guys had on that guy.
Yeah, no, that's garbage.
But
it's nonsense. I'm sorry.
But it's then just give everybody $300 million contracts because it doesn't matter. It just doesn't. Of course it matters. Of course there's collateral damage to it at some point.
Well,
and
one of the things we had talked about was the gymnastics that you can do to get out of it was to kick Rhodes
kicking
down.
the can down the road.
Okay, so now you're in a situation where your best player wants a trade, and because of the money pushed down the road, make that trade. It is going to hit you in the heart.
Well, I get the concept of the cap keeps going up and the dollar value is going to keep going down, so you get better value. Makes perfect sense.
Sure.
Eventually, you have to bend over and pick up the can.
Yeah.
And that's what I think all of this is coming to a head. And again, maybe they talk him out of it. Maybe they just give him another enormous contract, make him the highest paid defensive player in the history of the game, give him a quarterback-like contract, and they prolong this and they get him back into the boat. I mean, David Njoku asked for a trade, and Kevin Stefanski talked him back into the boat. But to go this public about it and to be this intent on it, given what I know where he was 2 years ago, given what he said toward the end of the season, I think they're going to have a hard time getting him back in the boat. But you don't have to trade him. We had that conversation about the Cavs over the summer. You don't necessarily have to trade these guys.
It's tough because.
Hey, G, hold on. Sorry, real quick. More breaking news or update on this. But Albert Breer just tweeted, Myles Garrett made his trade request public today, but the Browns' position on Garrett has not changed. Per sources, the team has no plans to deal him.
Well,
I was just going to say they did the same thing with Baker. Because when Deshaun told them no and Baker came out and said he wanted traded, the team stance was, well, sorry, you're under contract. We're not trading you.
Right.
And maybe I don't know. Let's wait and see where this
they
goes.
ended up having to trade him.
Drive that price up. Drive it up. Listen, because now that's a signal of, oh, no, you're going to have to come higher. Don't come at all.
There are probably 25 to 30 front offices right now that are having this conversation.
Yeah.
Do we want in on this?
Yeah, like right now.
Do we want in on the Myles Garrett sweepstake?
It's like the stock market is crashing and you're in the financial institutions. They waking you up at 3 a.m. Yeah, get John over here. It's 3 a.m. I said get John over here.
Yeah, this DEFCON 10.
But the bat signal, I just see. This is the fascinating part about it is when you watch and you're going to watch around the league, you're going to get a lot of people that inquire about it. And you're going to figure out, okay, well, this guy wants to trade, this guy wants to trade, and they can do process of elimination based on who gives them the best offer. The interesting part to me is, do you still draft a quarterback? Because I'm just looking at it from this perspective. If you don't sell, how can you sell your fan base that you just lost your like generational player, and then you have no quarterback and you don't draft one?
Yeah.
I mean, what are people gonna watch? So we come into the games to watch Jerry Jeudy and Kirk Cousins?
Especially when you're trying to build a brand new $2 billion stadium.
You gotta have
and jack
something.
up prices to the point where people will have sticker
Arch
shock.
Manning. Jason said it a million times. It's the Arch Manning plan.
I mean, there's no guarantee he comes out in 26, especially with NIL money. But it was just an example of if he does come out, I think Jimmy Haslam would be slobbering at the mouth to get.
Did you see the video of Peyton's son throwing balls to
I did.
NFL?
Marshall.
Yeah.
Oh,
and let's be clear.
Unfortunately, the stadium won't be built in 2040 when he's eligible to be drafted.
Here's the big elephant in the room, though. You act like the Mannings don't move people from bad organizations.
Oh, listen.
What are you talking about?
If it came down to the Browns had the number one pick,
They're not letting him go.
and Arch was coming out in the draft.
Come on, stop. You talking about Shador?
I was going to say,
you talking about Shador?
It's the
No,
Deion
and,
situation.
Like what?
and by the way, Peyton and Jimmy Haslam are buddies.
Nah, that's not going
But
down.
I'll guarantee you, they're not going to let Arch come to this.
No, it's not. Oh, and by the way, even if you had 4 first-round picks, if Arch Manning is the second coming of Peyton Manning, whoever has the number 1 draft pick is not trading it. You could have 10 first-round picks. Yeah. So we can ante up all the picks you want. Sorry, Cleveland. We're going to take the generational guy that everybody would.
Watch the race of teams that tank this year thinking that he will come out.
And he may not.
He might not. He might stay.
But my larger point
Peyton
is
stayed.
again, all of this is risk. Freely admit, it's all risk. It's calculated risk. But the quarterback class of next year looks significantly better at this point than the quarterback class this year. So even if it's not Arch, even if it's not the number one guy, there still should be a class next year of multiple options.
More options,
Of more options and more bites at the apple than what you've got now.
And to Jay's point on NIL, according to all reports, Arch Manning just signed a $6 million NIL deal with Red Bull. So money is not an issue.
There
for
is
Arch
no,
Manning.
And will never be an issue for
It never
Arch
was.
Manning.
It never
Well,
was.
I'm
to
just
begin
saying,
with.
even in his own right,
It wasn't for Eli when they masterminded the,
Chargers,
San Diego, don't take us.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing for him.
Hey, man, Arch Manning ain't signing up for Pell Grant, man.
No.
And by the way, that's already frozen, so don't worry about that.
Let me get another read in, and we will advance our conversation. If you're looking for tickets to the next big event, whether it's a concert, a comedy show, or a sporting game, which is very weirdly worded to a game, let's just call it that, finding the ticket at the right price can be a headache, but with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Let me tell you how it works. Game Time Picks through the app does all the hard work for you. It curates the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. I've used it before. Ant's used it before. It's easy. Highly recommend it. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's guaranteed lowest price. If you find a better deal online somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, create an account, redeem code Locked On for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So this next clip I'm about to play you guys was from the Bill Simmons podcast well before any of this Myles Garrett news became public. As you know, it came public at literally 11:01 this morning, so this was from well before. And on the Bill Simmons podcast, they were talking about which teams were in the worst position moving forward, taking into consideration the roster, the salary cap, the future draft picks, the young talent on the team, and they came to a conclusion on which team was in first place, which is worst, in their rock bottom rankings. Steve, let's play the clip.
I made an end of the year rock bottom rankings for you. Rock franchises rock bottom. Who's the deepest rock bottom right now? I think it's the Browns, number one. They 3-14. They lost their last 5. They lost 8 more games than they lost last year.
Right.
Their last 3 games, they scored 16 points. They have 2 more years of Deshaun Watson.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a top 2 pick, which they kind of stumbled into and didn't seem conceivable. But now they have the second pick in this draft that everybody's already like, I don't know about these quarterbacks. And yet they're going to have to take one, right? Or you think they're going to have to trade
it? Yeah, they have to just keep trading picks. They have to say, sorry, fans, we f***ed up. We're going to be bad for the next 3 years. It's our fault. It's not yours. You'll still have to pay top dollar to get into these games, but we're going to have to do some maneuvering to get these draft picks back, to get some capital back. I really feel that's the way to do it. They're not a quarterback away from winning, and they're already paying a ton to keep the terrible one.
So they had the Browns at number 1. Jay, you and I talked this morning. I disagreed with that this morning.
Yeah.
Do you believe the Browns
are
in the worst spot?
I do now. I was going to say, this is really hard when you're comparing them to all the other teams. We're all observers of the other teams, but we don't study the other teams. Could there possibly be another team that's in a worse situation long term? Maybe.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I don't know of that team if there is one. I could probably be reminded of a team situation and say, yeah, that sucks too.
Bingo.
The Saints are bad. So when
Bingo.
I was doing it, I was going, geez, Saints, Raiders, Browns,
Here's a real easy way to do this, okay? Like real quick. We'll go real quick. Just go through the top teams in the draft. Who's worse? Who's in a worse situation, the Browns or the Titans? It's probably close.
Yeah,
I think they're real close too. That's why I would have said originally they're in the bottom 5 for sure.
Browns or Giants? Who's in a worse spot?
Browns.
Well,
Mike, you know the Giants.
The Giants do have a player I think is going to be a generational wide receiver.
Yeah, I think the Giants are in a better spot.
Browns or Patriots? Patriots think they have their quarterback in Drake May.
They do, and also with Mike Vrabel, I think you're going to see an
in a better
immediate culture change.
Browns or Jaguars? Trevor Lawrence.
See, that was the other one that I was like, I don't really know their full situation.
Give me the Jaguars.
But because they have, I would rather have Trevor Lawrence than what we have.
They got Walker.
Yep. Browns or Raiders?
Boy. I like the Raiders because they got a monster tight end. They got does Dexter Lawrence play for them?
No, Lawrence is a Giant. But they have Max
But-
Crosby.
Max Crosby.
They have a piece on both sides.
They're not in a great
that I
spot,
like.
but they're probably a little bit better. They
Yeah.
got a beautiful stadium that they play in that nobody goes to. Browns or the Jets?
Jets.
Jets are in quarterback mess too, but they've
But they got
a great
defense.
defense.
Great
They got
defense.
Yeah,
Garrett
give me the
Wilson.
Jets are better. Are in a better spot.
Garrett Wilson.
Browns or Panthers?
That's tough.
Well, I mean,
Bryce Young looks like he
Bryce
might
Young
have figured
showed-
some things out this year.
yeah, he showed signs
At least
of
they got some
improvement.
quarterback. Give me the Panthers.
And then Browns or Saints. Saints are in cap hell. They don't have a quarterback. They play in a shit stadium.
They have no coach.
They have no coach.
Yeah.
So that's it really. And then the picking 10th is the Bears. Browns or Bears. Bears have
Bears got
better
all kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So, and then the 49ers are after that. So, I mean, based
God.
on that, the Browns, Saints,
Man.
you can talk yourself into the Titans.
Probably.
But here's the thing. I just heard them talk. And I'm like, the worst thing you can do, I'm telling you this right now, the worst thing you can do is go up there, trade back a bunch of times, hand the card into the commissioner, and they say defensive tackle. Ain't nobody coming to them games. I'm going to let you know right now. Because here's what's going to happen. You'll get that defensive tackle, and you might win one game
Garrett,
this year.
it's not the NBA. Fans come to games not to see one player play. Fans weren't going to the stadium to say, all right, let me dial in on Myles Garrett now. They come to the stadium because they want to see wins. It's about winning.
But you're not going to get any wins with a D tackle
well,
at all.
I know this. You're not going to get any wins with no talent anywhere.
Here's the thing.
You are talent starved.
You
need everything.
Here's what you are missing. Jason just said it. They have the defensive player of the year and you won 3 games.
Yes.
If you don't have a quarterback, you're out of here.
100%.
So they might get to swinging. Yeah, get to swinging. Now, if you move Myles Garrett, you better draft 2 quarterbacks now, because that's the only referendum. That's the only thing people want to see. When you are doing a rebuild, we don't want to see defensive tackles and tight ends and guards. We want to see, can you find a quarterback? And here's the thing: if they don't draft a quarterback, do you think that they're going to win enough games or even get enough cachet or anything for the fan base to stay around? Stefanski and Barry will be gone in 4 weeks. The only thing that's going to save them right now, you know they're going to be terrible, is if they have a quarterback that looks like that he's competent and shows flashes that he might be the guy. I don't care if you get it at 2 or 33 or wherever, but you got to take a quarterback in this draft.
Oh, they
and
will.
You better figure it out.
I'm not saying they're doing it too. They might, but they're taking a quarterback somewhere in this
Somewhere.
draft. They have to.
They got to.
But I mean, just look across. You talk about the holes on this team. Your left tackle may show up at 350. He may show up at 415. Odds are probably the same. Were you going to bet on him showing up at 350 or 415? That's probably even money. Right tackle, there's no guaranteed money left on Conklin's deal. What are you going to do there? The left guard is old and may retire. The right guard's getting older. Receiver, I've talked about it all year. All the metrics, all the advanced metrics tell you the receivers are slow and aren't good at creating separation. Jerry Jeudy's a number 1. Looked like he could be a number 1. What do you have beyond that? You don't have a running back on the roster. By the way, you don't have a quarterback either. Defensively, you may have lost your best linebacker for his career.
Ever.
Now you may trade your best edge rusher, which, again, I think you absolutely have to look at that. But, it's a really, really, really bleak spot right now. If you fix the quarterback, though, everything else turns. Everything else turns.
That's why I'm going to the casino. Listen. They could tell me all you want. This is bad class. This is bad class. This is bad. You could keep saying that.
You want to prove it.
No. I'm rolling these dice. That's the only thing we got.
We did that with Deshaun Watson.
Hey,
it set us back to where we are
But
today.
you still got to keep rolling.
And that
keep rolling
wasn't
the
even
dice.
that much of a dice roll.
Garrett's right. You got to
gotta
keep throwing the
keep
dice.
rolling.
And not
So
necessarily
miss on quarterback again?
Yeah.
Well,
When
It
there's
may
not,
happen.
see, everybody has to put a grade on what's the percentage chance that this player's going to hit.
Oh, I'm not saying take him at 2. I'm not saying that.
I'm
but
not
you got to
either.
take a quarterback.
I'm not
Every draft. We went through this before.
Cam Ward's
almost
going 1 to
every
Miami.
year.
Does everybody agree with that now?
To Tennessee.
Tennessee.
To Tennessee.
From
Yeah,
Miami.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I
the
said that.
prevailing
I said
report
that a
out of
couple
the
weeks
Senior Bowl.
ago, only because Bernie said they love Cam Ward.
Even the worst drafts, quarterback drafts, still have one. And maybe it's Cam Ward is the one and you're
And that's
screwed
right,
no matter
right.
what. But even the worst quarterback drafts, typically,
Except
there's
for
at
the
least
22
one.
class.
And if he's
the 22 class, there's none.
and if I'm crazy,
That was Kenny Pickett was the first quarterback
That was
off
Brock
the board.
Purdy.
Yeah.
That was Brock
Brock
Purdy.
Purdy.
Yeah.
Purdy.
Okay.
So
Mr. Irrelevant.
But again,
Maybe you get one in the
There's
seventh
there's
round.
one.
But there's one.
And am I wrong in this? It's not as punitive as it is if you miss. Like, look, they got rid of Josh Rosen. They get rid of people. Like, if Shedeur Sanders or whoever you take in the second round ain't it, especially if it's the second round.
Now, G, you're right. It's a lot cheaper to miss on a rookie quarterback than it is to bring someone.
Oh,
in for
100%.
$30
Of
million
course it is.
And if we won
And I think because of the
G's right.
Deshaun Watson contract, you can't go out and do this through free agency. You just can't. You can't.
There's no one worth doing it on. I mean,
No,
maybe,
there isn't.
Maybe
but even if there
Darnold,
was,
but
Jay,
maybe.
even if there was, the formula for where they are now is almost dictates you have to do it with a rookie quarterback contract.
I'm just looking at the landscape. If I'm a fan and you still got Deshaun Watson nasty taste in your mouth, and you know he's still in the roster. You look at Nick Chubb, he's diminished. Myles Garrett ain't gonna be here no more. JOK may never play again, and I mean that puts you in a position where you watching your team. You don't want to get back to that place in 17 or 16 where it was. I mean, I dreaded talking about the Browns, and I had to do it for a living. You knew Cody Kessler. You knew good and well every game you would go into a game and you said the Browns are going to lose, and there's nothing we could do about it. I don't think that they have a stadium on the horizon where they can sell us, hey, you know, we still got these retread quarterbacks. We got Bailey Zappi coming back and compete. No, man, this not gonna work. They better trust me. They better figure this thing out with quarterback. They better keep swinging and missing, or this thing it's not going. It's gonna be ugly. Quickly.
I can't take another miss at quarterback. I can't take it.
I don't want to take the miss either. I really wouldn't. I really would love for there to be one of these guys. Like at least give me. I would love to even have a Penix or Bo Nix will look good right now.
I would give a year off my life to have Bo Nix on the roster right now.
Right now, I'm not hate. So I'm just looking at it like I'm wondering what they're gonna do. This is fascinating.
And Bo Nix was the 6th quarterback taken.
He was.
In a very quarterback deep draft.
He was.
This is very fascinating. Well, it looks like we'll be in a news cycle again. We can't get out the news cycle, can we?
It never ends.
No,
It never ends.
We can't get a low-key one at all.
And today's my daughter's 13th birthday.
Oh,
so thanks,
happy
Browns.
birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Ava. Thanks for screwing it up, Browns.
Ava. Sorry
We will
about the
do-
Browns being in your town.
A ton more Myles Garrett stuff tomorrow. We'll see what comes out. But you guys ready to talk a little Cavs? Let's pick the vibes up. It's been a rough first 52 minutes of the show.
Yes.
Obviously, could not plan for breaking news. Thank you to Myles for breaking the news at 11:01 and not at 1:01 as soon as we got off the air. So we do appreciate that. But let's
He knows
do
what
another
time we take the
FanDuel
air.
review,
He's a
and then
fan.
we
He
will
watches.
pivot over to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Super Bowl 59, one team, one game, two teams, endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with the FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether you're predicting the first touchdown, who will take home the MVP trophy, or the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to place your bets and feel the thrill of every moment. With live betting all game long, you can jump into the action, adjust your bets, and ride the wave of excitement from the kickoff to the final whistle. Plus, to make the Super Bowl even sweeter, new customers can score $200 when you make your first bet. Just place a $5 bet, and if you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Download the app or head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS and bet with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. So, guys, the Cavs laid an absolute whomping on the Dallas Mavericks yesterday. They were up by 50 points at one point, and they had
50 in the first quarter.
50 in the first quarter, 91 in the first half, which was a record. So there's not a ton to break down on the game itself because it was just an absolute demolition derby after the Mavs came into the game with like 7 healthy players after the Luka trade. So I wanted to kind of ask this question. We talked about some potential trades for the Cavs last week. We did the bigger trades on Thursday. We talked about deals that got them under the luxury tax on Friday. And one thing we said was chaos would be good for the Cavs. It may open up some possibilities. So let's get your reaction first off to the AD for Luka trade and the De'Aaron Fox of the Spurs trade. And then let's figure out if those blockbuster deals will have any impact on what Cleveland wants to do and or is able to do at the deadline on Thursday. Gee, start us off. What do you think about these blockbuster deals over the weekend?
So, first and foremost, I'm actually confused. I don't know how it got to a point where Luka was even available to start with. Second of all, this trade had to be facilitated by ownership. There was no way you could be talking this long, Jason, to these people and this stay under wraps. The owner must have woke up and was like, yeah, go ahead, press go on that. And the third thing is, what the Mavs got Minimowski. They got, Anthony Davis is what, 31?
Yes.
He's 32.
32?
32. Luka's 25, right? He just went to the finals last year.
Oh, he turns 32 next month.
He turns 32. Obviously, Luka is a top 5 player in the league, and he's well loved. He's beloved. And the fact that you only shop this to the Lakers, I'm like, there's teams around the league that are like, listen, why didn't you open this up? You only got him in a 1. You could have got that and a massive haul. There would be teams lining up around the league trying to figure out what it was. So I'm looking at the insider over here trying to figure out, A, how they keep it under wraps, B, why the Mavericks moved him, and C, if they moved him, why did they move him for an aging player that can also not stay healthy? Jason, I'm confused.
I like AD and Kyrie together. If they win a championship in the next couple of years, does that change all of this?
Yeah, of
Yes,
course
of
it
course
does.
it does.
Of course.
Okay,
That's
so
the
let's start
only thing
there.
Yep.
Because I actually like that pairing.
Okay.
Now, the broader conversation, absolutely they could have got more for him. 100% they could have got more. And that's where my struggle is, because I think the Mavs could win a championship with those guys. I thought they could with Luka as well. And obviously there was concerns with Luka long-term committing the type of money and the type of dollars he is. And the big question that I don't have the answer to is this the start of what you – like teams have tried for years. I'm not calling Dallas a small market team, but small market teams have tried to find ways to hold on to their stars. That's been a big thing in the NBA is these guys that we draft and we develop, you got to give us a better chance to be able to hold on to them. Well, now they've done that, and we've seen that in recent years where guys sign the deal in their city, stay an extra year, and then they get traded. So cap space isn't as valuable as it was 10 years ago, because it used to be go back to the Miami Heat, clear out the cap space, and bring in these free agents and sign them as free agents. Now it's more through trades to where these guys sign in their current city knowing that they're probably going to get dealt in a year or so, get moved out. So now is it that the money is so exorbitant that the teams now want off of these deals, or is this a one-off? I tend to think this is a one-off. This is a rare situation where a team had long-term concerns about the guy. And
that's it.
And like, I'm not saying anything that probably hasn't been said a million times before. We were in Cincinnati all weekend for swimming, so I didn't follow I slept through the whole thing, and we didn't follow every blow-by-blow detail of this. But the Mavericks know Luka Doncic better than any team in the league. And I think I put in the group chat, typically when a trade like this happens, it's because there's stuff in the closet
Because they know something.
that they know about that nobody else knows about. And that's why things like this get done. But that doesn't mean you sell low on the guy. And that's the part that baffles me is that, I mean, we talked about it before the show. If Nico picks up the phone and calls Cleveland and says,
We're doing
hey,
that next. Don't ruin that.
Okay,
yet.
all right, I won't. So ultimately, I actually don't hate the trade for Dallas in terms of the piece that they got back, because I think they could win a title that way. But they did chop their contention window in half, it feels like, and they sold low. So maybe it sounds like I'm talking out both sides of my mouth on that. On one hand, I don't hate the pairing. On the other hand, man, you could have got so much more.
Yeah, I like you. That's the one part of it I just can't get my mind around. And Nico doubled down on it yesterday. I was asking around a little bit yesterday, and it was GMs and executives from different sports. But
Yeah.
I said typically, what's the process of something like this? It was said to me that perhaps Nico had identified AD as his piece.
Yeah.
It's like the only piece he would have made this deal for.
Yeah.
And that's possible too. He might have looked at, and he kept saying yesterday, defense wins championships. And you could debate that all day long. But that clearly was the impetus for the organization making this move. And if they had looked at the landscape and said, let's find the player that we think matched with what we have now, and I don't hate that pairing either, by the way. I think Kyrie, I think they're going to do very well together. This might be one of those examples, kind of like the equivalent that I was trying to think of is this might end up being like the Rams and the Lions, where both teams got better.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible. Because there are a lot of things I like about this for the Lakers too. But it was said to me, if the Mavericks had made the decision that, okay, peruse the landscape, who's the guy that you can pair with Kyrie that can win a title within the next 2 or 3 years? Maybe the answer to that was AD.
Yeah.
Now, if it was, then the reason he didn't call anybody else or talk to anybody else is because he didn't want anybody else.
Yeah.
He basically, and I do think there are major long-term concerns, and rightfully so, that the Mavericks have about Luka. If you look at his body type and the part of the world that he's from, old age tends to creep in a lot earlier on what we're dealing with him. Maybe they've seen with some recent dings that this thing could go south really, really quickly, and then we've held the asset too long. So I don't know what was going on internally in their conversations, but it was told to me, and after I heard it, I said, okay, that's very likely that AD was their missing link, and he decided, I'm not interested in moving him for just anybody or just assets or more pieces. I need AD, and if I get AD, I think we can win within the next 2 or 3 years.
Hey, McNuggets.
And the time will tell.
Now, maybe you could look into this, and I'm going to ask you this question because you into the advanced analytics. Could it be that they looked at, as great as Luka is, right, and he has the ball in his hands and his usage is very high, what if they said, you know what, we've been looking at it, and we feel like Kyrie is just as good with the ball in his hands, and maybe adds a little bit of this or that to the table. And if we can upgrade our defense, and we can upgrade, getting, rim protectors, and we could do something with AD who could also stretch the floor. Could it be like in advanced analytics, they said, listen, if we lose Luka on paper, people going to freak out. But we feel Kyrie Irving can do some of those same things if he had the ball more.
I mean, maybe. I think they're wrong. Like, Kyrie's awesome, don't get me wrong, but we're talking about Luka freaking Doncic here.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm trying to talk myself into it.
Imagine Friday, okay? Imagine Friday. We're doing the show on Friday. And I said, hey, Mike, imagine if you're the Mavs and the Lakers called you and offered AD and a 1 for Luka. Would you do it?
Hell no.
Yeah, nah. Like, nah.
You would have laughed me off the set.
They would, like.
The most, and I kind of agree with Jason's point. I did a whole reaction post stream to this yesterday, and like, the AD move with the Mavs, their starting 5 right now is nice. Like, if really Kyrie nice. And AD are healthy, like, that team poses a lot of matchup problems for the Western Conference teams in the playoffs. And Nico Harrison mentioned he looked at how Jared Allen and Evan Mobley played together, and they wanted to kind of emulate that. And I don't think we're going to have time to get into that discussion today. We'll probably save it for another day. But that's a really nice lineup. I don't want to diminish Anthony Davis with anything I'm going to say. If you are trading Luka Doncic, who is 25 years old, a undisputed top 4 player in basketball when healthy, despite the fact he may be slightly overweight, whatever, you have your issues, concerns, how you don't get every possible asset back from the Lakers.
How do you not get through 2031?
I know, that's what I wonder too. I would think that even if they would ask for it, they would have done it. Yes! The Lakers would have done that.
Yes!
It goes back to, G, real quick. Sorry. It goes back to the initial Celtics-Nets trade with Paul Pierce and Mikhail Prokhorov when they ended up getting all the picks that turned into Tatum and Brown. And the famous story, and this has been confirmed by multiple reports, was that Prokhorov wanted those guys so bad that each time the Celtics would call, they'd ask for one more asset. And Billy King, the Nets GM at the time, would go up to Prokhorov and say, all right, they're asking for a pick swap. Yeah. And Prokhorov would say, do it, we want it. Terrible Russian accent. So he'd call back, and then Danny Ainge would be like, we want another first-round pick. And Billy King would go back. And eventually he kept saying, we're just going to ask till he says no. And that's how they ended up with 7 picks before those kind of deals were even thought of. So, to me, it's inexcusable by the Mavs to not get at least both first-round picks back from Dallas.
I think that part of it's malpractice. I do, because they clearly could have pried more assets away. However, I'll go back to something Jason said. And when you texted the group on Sunday, what you texted, and you talked about it. You said, usually when a deal like this happens, there's something that the team knows that no one else knows.
Right.
I'm going to guess. I'm just going to guess, okay? That's what we do from 90% of what we say.
Right.
I'm wondering if Dallas hasn't been on him about his weight and he hasn't been able to get it under control, and they're sitting there going, we're standing on a ticking time bomb here. If he continues to play at this weight, he's going to shorten his career, and we're going to left with an asset that ends up being broken down and unmovable. Let's move now. Let's sell high. And that's, again, no information that that's the case. I'm just judging with my eyes and saying maybe, because I can't explain it otherwise, maybe the weight is a bigger issue than we know.
I'm telling you, this is an ownership move. Sometimes when you get an owner...
Well, Mark Cuban's no longer the owner. And when he was asked about this, he said, I had no idea this was going on.
So they got a new ownership group.
It wouldn't have happened with Cuban.
It would not have happened with Mark Cuban.
There was a quote saying, if I trade my wife over before I trade Luka.
Yeah.
Now, here's the crazy part. If you look at it, when ownership gets involved, things tend to happen quickly.
Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. Or Kyrie Irving for Cleveland.
Yeah.
LeBron James himself said, don't trade Kyrie. Dan Garrett was like, no, we're getting rid of him. When an owner gets in his mind, I don't know what he did behind the scenes. I don't know if it was, like we said, the owner called your phone, you don't call it back. You send the owner a voicemail. Billionaires be having real quick fuses sometimes. And they be like, listen, whatever. Hey, get whatever you can today.
There's a lot going on, and I don't want to act like I know all of the ins and outs in this, because I don't. I just know that there's a lot going on right now in Texas in terms of Mavs are trying to get a new arena. They're trying to get gambling passed in Texas.
That's the big one.
And the
That's the
legislation.
big one.
So there's a lot at stake here that rises well above
Hoops.
the court. And I don't know how to tie all the pieces together. I can just I know this is going on. Like, the gambling issue is huge right now in Texas. They're trying to get a new arena. This new ownership just came in and bought majority control from Cuban. Cuban got out, I think. And that's another piece in all this. And I haven't put all the pieces together, but it's like
the owners are running like
owners are running out of the NBA faster than they ever have.
What do they know?
Why?
Because it's not as financially beneficial as it once
Because
was.
Cuban out.
Yes.
Mark Lazary in Milwaukee out. The Boston ownership family gone. They're trying to sell.
Yep.
Like these. And this is we've never seen
Jason,
teams.
I think it goes to what you said on Friday. This deal that they're currently working under,
it's an awful deal.
It is awful for the owners. Some of these owners are in it not for the money, for the ego, to win. And you can no longer buy your way into a championship, and they want out.
I can't explain how some of the small market owners with not a lot of juice were able to bully Ballmer.
Is it because
Dan.
there's more of them?
I don't know. I wish I could give you an answer. I don't know.
I feel
but
like
how the owners agreed to this, to where like teams that build the right way, and as these guys earn these max money and earn these dollars, the league has made it impossible to keep these teams together. And I totally get trying to crack down on the easy way out of building super teams, of trading for this guy and signing that guy as a free agent. But when you do it right, when you build through the draft, or you make a really smart trade, and Kobe getting in on the Brooklyn deal and stealing Jared Allen for a 1, and then watching him grow with this group, and drafting Darius and drafting Evan, and yeah, he struck at the right time on the Donovan trade. But for the most part, like, this group built its way together and then made the superstar trade at the exact right time. He made a huge gamble on it, and it paid off. Donovan signed the extension. As soon as he signed the extension, the Cavs won that deal. You ought to be able to be rewarded by that, to be able to keep that group together as long as the contention window allows. Financials and the league should not be able to break that apart. And what the NBA has done, you're seeing it in Milwaukee. That's why Lazary got out. They couldn't afford where this thing was going. You're going to see it in Boston, the pressure point this year. What's Boston going to do this summer? They have $450 million committed this summer, more than that, in salary and tax penalties.
Phoenix had an owner change not long ago.
But Phoenix did it the stupid way. And Phoenix, that guy was a pig, and there was a lot of...
There was some behind the scenes
Yes.
stuff.
Pushed out.
Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
that
he
wasn't
got pushed
financial.
out.
But
Bad guy.
that was Ishbia trying to do what dumb owners do and come in and swing in their
yeah.
and trying to make big splashes. And they picked the worst time to do that because with the second apron and all these things, you can't do that anymore.
Right.
So Phoenix is not a good example because they did it the dumb way. But Boston, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and OKC are teams that like built through the draft, built organically, made really good trades at really opportune times, and now they're going to be punished for it. And I don't believe that's right.
Jason, let me ask you this, just to bring it back to the Cavs before we get into the Mavs potential dealing if it were to happen. But with the chaos that happened over the weekend, the Luka trade, the De'Aaron Fox 3-team trade that ended with Zach LaVine in Sacramento, Fox going to the Spurs to pair up with Wemby, does that impact or change anything for the Cavs at the deadline in terms of what you think is available for them or how they'll operate in terms of trying to add or subtract from this team?
I don't think so, no. I think I think they're going to continue on. I don't think that they're going to make a big move. I wrote about it over the weekend. We talked about it on Friday. If I were them, I would trade Tristan and Sam Merrill into space and create cap space to get you under the tax line and then try and be active in the buyout market. Danny LaRue is our cap expert at The Athletic. He's really, really good. I talked to Danny about this, and I said, hey, if they do this, does this get them under the line? And Danny said, yes, that gets them out of the tax. So I'm going off his word on that.
Which is really the prudent thing to do here, Jay.
It really is.
It may disappoint some fans, but this is no longer an era where you can just say, guns blazing, let's go for it.
How many points Sam Merrill had last night?
He had 9 threes, baby.
He had
9 threes.
That hurts my heart when I can't. No, can we find somebody else?
Porter Jr.
He doesn't get him under the line, I don't think.
Him and Tristan, though, I thought together. Isn't Merrill and him the same money?
I would think
basically?
they would be around the same money-wise.
I mean, I didn't think Porter was the same money as Sam.
He's $300K fewer. Sam Merrill this season.
That might actually be the difference, though.
Yeah.
It's very
Merrill's
close, right?
Merrill's at $2,164,000. Craig Porter Jr.'s at $1,891,000.
I mean, if Craig gets him under, sure, yes.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
would much rather.
Absolutely.
And I like Craig, but I like Sam as a
And the
weapon.
issue is going to be is they're unrestricted free agents this summer. I don't know if the Cavs are going to be able to bring Merrill back anyway after the season. So I looked at that as how many minutes is he really going to play in the postseason series anyway? Probably not many. Because re-signing Ty Jerome has to become the
priority.
The priority this summer.
I think the cool part about this is I think this is shaping up to be at some point. Even though these guys are really good players like AD and Luka, when you trade main pieces and parts like that, it's almost signifying, hey, this might not happen this year. Both of the guys are injury. They're basically injured right now. Like, they're not playing. And when you get two massive pieces, it takes time for that to, like, be cohesive. Now you got Luka out there in L.A. It almost signifies there's a lot of teams that kind of punt it. Like, they're like, okay, we're going to make this deal, but we're looking for future stuff. But the Cavs are the one team who you look at and they say, well, they've been playing all together. They've been playing, the same level of basketball. Guys are familiar with one another. This might be a year that they can take advantage of some of that. If you can get past the Celtics and you can get to a Western Conference Finals, I think, or basically in the NBA Finals, I think that you can play a team that might not be as cohesive as you are.
And in the playoffs, the cohesion matters a lot. We're going to move to a hypothetical here in a second, but before we do that, as we look at what the Cavs might do, and I've said I'm fine with them either staying pat or doing something minor that gets them under the apron. I think that's probably the prudent way out here, but
gets them out of the tax.
Gets them out of the tax,
Yeah.
and I just think for moving forward, because you don't want the clock to start ticking, and because it's so punitive, I really didn't know much about it until we discussed it more in depth last week. Like, this is really, really a hell you do not want to live in if you don't have to.
And quite honestly, to be totally honest, I don't know this. They could get out of the tax this year so that the clock starts next year so that they are not repeat offenders in 27-28, and they still may have to break off one of those pieces because of Donovan's starting salary. If he signs another deal with Cleveland, Donovan's starting salary will be $65 million in 27-28. So It's just and it's not that the Cavs did anything wrong. It's the rules of engagement now.
Hey.
Do you think LeBron had his fingerprints on this at all? Because CBS kind of reported that, or reminded everybody he was just had some discontent playing with AD in 23.
No.
He had mentioned that.
I think that they operated. It's funny because
he claimed, I didn't know this was coming.
I don't think he did know. And
Really?
because LeBron's last year in Cleveland, I wrote a big story about this at the time. LeBron's last year here, the organization made a very obvious pivot away from listening to him.
Yeah.
Because for a while, it was whatever LeBron wanted, LeBron got. And his last year here, the organization had a pretty strong indication that he was not coming back. And they pivoted away. They gave him Dwayne. He wanted Dwayne here, and they gave him Dwayne. But a lot of the other moves, I can't remember them all now.
There were things he wanted that he didn't get.
He wanted Griff back, Griff left.
He wanted that the eighth pick. He wanted them to trade that.
He wanted them to trade that. They didn't. He wanted Jamal Crawford here. They brought Jetty Osman instead. They brought Jetty over. There was a few things that they wanted done, that he wanted done, that they went the exact opposite way.
But look at his influence on the Lakers in terms of the coach and drafting his son.
And this feels like
the pivot's coming.
Oh, maybe the Lakers are where the Cavs were.
This is the Lakers,
okay.
I think, doing exactly where the Cavs were, of they're no longer going to listen and take LeBron's influence. I mean, the man's 40 years old. They're not going to listen to everything he said. Now it's going to become,
It's
what does
Luka.
It's
Luka
our team
want?
again.
And no, it's going to become, what does Luka want now?
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so guys, we talked about the trade in big, how it impacts the Cavs. This is completely hypothetical. We know because Nico Harrison said yesterday he only talked to Rob Pelinka and the Lakers about this deal. No other teams knew Luka was on the market.
Right.
There was no bidding war. He approached the Lakers. He worked out a deal with the Lakers. Danny Ainge somehow snaked his way in and figured out I could get 2 second-round picks out of this, whatever. But those 3 teams were the only 3 teams that knew this was on the table.
Right.
Completely hypothetical, but what if Nico Harrison called the Cavaliers instead of the Lakers and said, hey, we're open to shopping Luka Doncic? In that instance, G. Bush, would you break up the core 4 in order to get Luka Doncic to the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Man, listen, life is all about shades of gray. What you mean, what pieces of the core 4 you want to break up? Look, like,
Let's just go right to the top. Donovan Mitchell. Evan Mobley, either or.
See, it's a little tougher.
Wait a minute. What happened to the G. Bush that was rolling those dice?
It's a little tougher.
Boom.
So here's why it's
For
tough.
money purposes, if we're doing
No, I
realistic.
know. I know.
No,
If we're
but-
doing
Yep.
realistic,
Yep.
money purposes, Luka and Kleber, who ended up going to the Lakers, for DG, Allen, and Tyson, it does work. That just from a money standpoint.
But that's not the only one that would have worked.
You can finagle it. That's the cleanest. Just giving you
All right.
realistic
Right.
money options.
So
Right.
I'm going to talk this out. And listen, this may come back to haunt me. This actually may come back. People going to say you are crazy, and it could be. But for some reason, every time I watch Evan Mobley, he just gets better. Like every time I see him, like every time, like his footwork around the basket, the way he plays, he keeps getting better. I look at Luka, and he is. I mean, he's the white LeBron James.
He's Luka.
He's 28, 8 and 8, and you're like, dang, bro, he can get it anytime he want. So people like, listen, you him and Han, G. Bush, what you gonna do? If I had the opportunity to get him, I would have to say yes, but it's closer than you think, and I would not want to trade Evan Mobley at all.
Well, I'm with you 100%.
I don't
If
want
you
to
can
trade-
tell me that Mobley stays and Mitchell stays,
Y'all can get whatever y'all want.
I would tell you, Jarrett, you had a nasty dunk yesterday,
Shake-
bro. I liked you yesterday a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
And Darius, man, you had to eat through a straw, bro. You're a warrior.
And he an all-star.
I hope you like living in Dallas.
Yeah,
Because if you can
Good thing you
tell
can
me,
chew, because there's a stake in your future.
if you get Luka
And-
for Allen and Garrett and Darius Garland, I probably would break my fingers calling him back to do that deal.
they might be able to get some other stuff too. Like if you want, they pull that net to me. Hey, can we get your boy Karis LeVert? Sure, you don't want that contract. They probably want the what's his name, Jalen Tyson. They probably want him too.
Well, Dallas would never do it. What is Dallas going to get out of Darius Garland that they don't get
out of Kyrie?
No. Listen,
So
I'm
it's
just saying. In a hypothetical world,
So if that's the hypothetical we're going to play,
And they say, no, Jay, we want Donovan Mitchell.
you always listen. Like even in this profession, any profession, like if you say this is my job for life, I'm staying here for life. Well, you're kidding yourself, because if your competitor walked in the door and said triple your salary, I guess it's not for life. And you're crazy if you don't always listen. Like people always just tell me all the time, are you happy at ESPN? Are you looking? And I always just say, I've never looked. I'm not looking. But if someone calls me and blows my doors off, suddenly I'm looking.
Yeah.
And so I think that if I'm the Cavs, I never would have called Dallas and said, we need Luka. What's the cost? But at the same time, we're talking about a generational player. Now, my only concern is, I know he's young, but like, what is he really? You know how everybody's like, well, you go to your physician and they give you a physical and they say, well, the calendar says you're 59, but your vitals say you're 42.
Yeah.
Like, what is Luka really?
What is he really? He is a 5-time first-team All-NBA player. That's what he is. You
Right.
make the
That's
trade.
what he was.
Period.
I know, but Jay, I'm just being devil's advocate here because I agree with you. But you always, when you get into these situations, you always talk yourself into what's the worst case scenario and what's the best case scenario. And for me, the worst case scenario is this dude's wheels start falling off because he can't control his weight. And in 3 years, everybody looks back and say, remember when Luka was Luka? And who in the hell is this? We've seen guys get old quick.
Luka already plays like he's 59.
That's crazy.
Any player more positioned better to age gracefully than Luka?
Yes, and here's why. Your body will tell you what the limitations are. I've learned that in my lifetime. I remember when I was 40 and people used to say, you still playing baseball? And I used to say, I'm going to play until I'm dead. And now when people say, you're 59 and you're still playing baseball? And now I'm saying, I know, man, I can't believe it. Because when we're done here, I'm going to go next door and I'm going to put my body through pain. I mean, real pain. My knees are going to hurt. My shoulders are going to hurt. And at some point, even though you want to be what you once were, your body is just saying, no. And at some point, that happens to all of us. Where is that point for Luka? I don't know.
The scary part about Luka is, what if he just, like, if he has a bad shooting night, like, if he, say for instance, if you stripped him of his ability to hit dagger shots at half court, you like Luka's shooting only 32% for the three, he's in trouble. Like he's not gonna lock you down.
Yeah, no, that's a weapon of his.
That's, I mean,
but
I'm not hating. I'll take it too.
He's got to get better defensively. Yes, he does.
Would you take him?
Yes.
Just said,
You can stop there. Yes.
Yes.
So we're all in agreement.
Mobley,
Listen,
right? Out of here.
Mike and I have defended Evan Mobley on this show more than anybody.
I'm not trading Mobley for him.
Oh,
I'm not.
I will drive him to the airport and put him on the plane.
Yeah, I'm not there.
Buckle his seatbelt.
I'm not there. I love Evan Mobley's progression. I think there's more. Let me ask you this.
I think next year he's going to be
Let me ask you
ridiculous.
this. Yeah, to that point. On the growth scale, is Evan Mobley's ceiling, is he further away from his ceiling than Luka is from his? I think Luka's at his ceiling.
But if this is Evan's ceiling and Luka's in the clouds, I'll take the clouds.
I don't think there's that big a difference.
He is a top 4 to 5 player in this league.
Agreed. No argument whatsoever.
Evan is not. As much as I love Evan, he is not.
So look at his progression arc from last year to this. What if he makes the same jump to next year?
He's still not in the top 5.
No, but he gets him a lot closer.
He's still not in the top 5.
They're not that far away age-wise.
Let me ask you this. I know they're not. Let me ask you this.
How old is Mobley?
23 and Luke is 25.
Oh, I thought Mobley was 24. Do you think that Mobley can ever be a top 5 player?
Sure. I'm not going to say no. Because I've said all along, if the Cavs are going to a championship, he has to be their best player.
And because he was a late bloomer, I like his chances of playing.
I don't know if he's really a late bloomer. He's 23 years old.
I know, but look at his body now. Like his body, Luka.
But the fact is, Luka's already there, and he should have another 7-8 years of this type of prime.
Well, I'll be long gone.
Do you know what he averaged last year when he was healthy? Just so
31.
He averaged 34, 9, and 10 last year on 49% from the field and 39%. From 3.
There is no player on the Cavs roster I would not trade to acquire Luka Doncic.
Now, my question is, All right, so we used to say this about LeBron all the time, and this is a fair point. If you got Luka on your team, you play a specific way.
That's true.
You have to.
It ain't no.
You can't be a track meet with him.
It's Luka and his pace.
Right.
That's what it is.
I agree with that.
You ain't got to play. It's Luka. That's how you think you can get 34 and 9 and 10. It's like you kind of have to like build the whole thing around him, right?
It's the LeBron thing, though.
Right.
LeBron was the same way.
So like it's the same way. So the way that Moby plays, or the way that the Cavs play, or the way that this brand of basketball we play, would it work unless we changed it to the Luka way?
Well, you couldn't play at the same pace that we're currently playing. No way.
No.
Jay, am I wrong? Mike, am I wrong?
No, Luka. I mean,
He couldn't keep up with that.
I think Luka could be in better
He'd lose
shape
weight.
and be faster if he wanted to. I think he likes playing as slow as humanly possible and processing and dissecting, similar to LeBron. I mean, LeBron is arguably the best single weapon on the fast break in the history of the NBA.
I agree with that.
And his teams historically play incredibly slow. Why? Because LeBron thinks their best chance to score is him dissecting the defense on every possession. And by the way, those two in LA together,
I know.
you have two supercomputers.
I'll
on
say
the
this.
court.
I,
It is
I cannot
that's
wait to
crazy. It's gonna
watch
be fun to
both.
watch.
I can't wait to see Dallas, and I can't wait to see LA.
They listen. This blockbuster. I ain't gonna lie. LeBron might stick around a couple more years just off that. Like, think of that. That's gonna be wild. But I will say this about him, Luka. Right? It's always ingrained in my memory when Michael Finley came and got that beer from that man. While he was,
I know.
While he was drinking the beer in
Yep.
the post game, and it
I'll
just
take
posted
that.
up. And Michael Finley, it was so smooth too. He came back, "What's up, dog? Let me go ahead and get that from you." I was like, and then I thought about it. If he's comfortable enough doing that, what is he comfortable doing? Like when the cameras ain't there? Like, come on, this is like he's a throwback. Like he's a throwback when back in the day when you used to play double headers and you go to the clubhouse and you crack a few brews with the team.
Yeah.
Look, right? You walking around smoking Lucky Strikes, right? Like this is crazy. You could just
Filterless.
This is wild out here. You come in for a business meeting. Hey, would you like some of this brandy? What? Like you just got the drink? I feel like y'all got that off of ESPN. I need that tell-all. I feel like you got brandy and it was all.
Not that I ever saw.
Before,
And I would love to tell you stories, but I mean, did it happen? I'm damn sure it did, but not in front of me.
Hey man, they had all the big. They had the big.
Now-
I want the Olbermann stories.
I heard stories before because I got there in 03.
Right.
I've heard legendary
the
stories.
big dogs. The big dog stories.
The funny one was, now remember, they used to do an 11 o'clock and a 2 o'clock live,
Yeah.
and it was all in Bristol.
Yeah.
I've heard stories of the late shows, 2 o'clock. Many times they were in local establishments, like they were thirsty.
Yeah.
And then they would just go from there to work.
Just right there. We got you. We ready to go. Hey, them stories.
And then they became corporate. When Disney bought them, like all of the nonsense stopped.
Yeah.
Hey, which one of y'all disgruntled people? Y'all gonna get disgruntled one day. Go ahead and get it.
Well, that book's been written.
It's been out
Yeah.
there?
Oh yeah.
Before
These
we-
guys have all the fun, I think is the title.
Oh, I'm late to the party.
Yeah. It's old, and a lot of not a lot of it. Some of it, I actually asked first person some of these people that were written about, and they're like, yeah, that is writer's embellishment.
Okay.
Some of that happened, and he took a kernel of truth and spun a hell of a tale.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
well, we have our guest ready. The call line is working, which is great. So let's do a quick ad read. We're going to bring in Cleveland State's head basketball coach to give us an update on their incredible season. But if you're looking to go and get tickets to your next big event, a concert, a comedy show, a game, finding the right ticket at the right price can be a headache. But with Game Time Picks, it's never been easier. Game Time Picks does all the hard work for you, curating the best deals so you don't have to waste time searching through endless ticket listings. And the best part, you're covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they'll refund you 110% of the difference. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something opens up. If you want to get tickets to an upcoming Cleveland State basketball game here in downtown Cleveland, you can use Game Time to get your tickets there as well. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. And with that, we are thrilled to welcome Coach Robinson to the show. His Vikings have won 13 in a row. That is the second longest win streak in the entire country. How you doing today, Coach?
I'm doing great. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Doing well.
Coach, I don't think we're doing as well as you are. You've got your Vikings on a real roll here. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that you're one away from the team record for consecutive wins. Is that right? The team record's 14?
Man, that's what they tell me. That's what they tell me.
So now, as you're looking forward, I made a crazy statement on the air on Friday. We were talking about your club. And I said, and you're going to get mad at me for this, Coach. I said, I hope they lose before the tournament starts. And I got some nasty email from some fans. One Viking fan said, yo, what's wrong with you? How could you ever say that? I'm superstitious. I would rather, because, there's pressure that comes with that win streak. And we know that in your league, in the Horizon League, you have to win that tournament to get that bid. I just think if you take the pressure of the losing streak off the table, it lessens the pressure on everybody because there's already enough pressure to win the tournament. Tell me I'm retarded and crazy and dumb, and why would you ever say that?
Well, I can understand why you would say that. But when you're in the middle of it, you need to, our focus has to be the next game, put our best foot forward, and all those type of things. And so, I'm not sitting here trying to look too far down the line and say, well, we need to drop one so we can get back right. Man, I say we ride the momentum and we do what we do every single day and we live with the results.
Do you talk about the streak with them?
The guys, we talk about it briefly after the game. The guys all celebrate it. And then once we get back together as a group, whether it's the next day or we give them the day off, we move on. We move on. We do what we call our culture clips of the last game, how we impacted each other, how we played for one another, and then we move on from there. We celebrate the win, but we also just move on to the next game.
Coach, I'm from a mid-major school. I went to Ohio University in the MAC, and you guys are in the Horizon League. And when you look at the landscape and climate, we hear so much about the transfer portal. We hear so much about NIL. How does that affect you on a mid-major level in terms of what the portal is and how you get players and players coming in and out? And has that changed your recruiting mix any, or are you guys used to it being a mid-major school because, NIL is something that was at a mid-major is something very rare for us?
Right. Well, that's a great question. Our recruiting efforts hadn't really changed. I do feel like the transfer portal and NIL has impacted everyone in college basketball. For us, where we are, we're not going to get in a bidding war. We do have NIL, but we're not going to get in a bidding war. So we don't lead in our recruiting with NIL. We still, talk to our recruits and their parents about transformational experience, right? Building great relationships, those type of things. And then NIL is just a bonus for it. And so we still, try to make sure we have those tight relationships and not make it be as transactional as, it could be at, a higher level.
Coach, I don't remember where, at the beginning of the season, where was Cleveland State picked by the media or whatever these polls? Because I believe Green Bay was picked to win the league one or way up there. Where were you guys?
So we were picked 7th. We were picked 7th. Yeah, we were picked 7th. We had not one of our guys were picked on the first or second team all-league preseason selections. I can see why. I didn't think we would be 7th. I felt like the guys we had returning that played enough last year, and then the recruits we brought in, we wouldn't be a 7th place team. But we lost 70% of our scoring last year, and we lost 60% of our rebounding.
Wow. So for people that haven't seen you guys play, people are tuning in and watching this and aren't totally familiar with how you're doing this. Take us through, how have you done this? How have you built this season out? And just explain to us how you've been able to get to where you are.
Well, it's really been a collective effort. We had 6 guys returning from last year. 4 of those guys that really played, we had two of those guys that returned were redshirt guys. And so the 4 guys that played on last year's team, they were like our hard hat guys. They came in. Dylan Arnett was a starter, but he was just blue collar and fit in. Kevin Smith and Chase Robinson, those 2 guys were 6th and 7th men. So those guys were our foundation. And then the guys that we brought in, the transfers we brought in, those guys have made an immediate impact. But it took a little bit. The month of November for us was pretty tough. We had 9 games. In the month of November, we had 2 5-day road trips.
Wow.
Now, there wasn't a ton of practice time there, but there was a lot of time for us to be on the road, to come closer together and fight through some things. And we had a pretty tough non-conference schedule, playing at Minnesota, at K-State. And then we had at Minnesota, at K-State, and then we had Kent State here. And so, those were all tough games for us.
How would you describe your team to someone who hasn't spent a lot of time watching them? Like, what is the strength of your team? What's their character collectively?
Yeah, so we're a defensive oriented team. Man, we set the tone with our defense. Man, our team is scrappy and gritty. And so, if someone's for the first time seeing our team, what will jump out to them, I would believe, would be, man, the effort that we play with defensively, how well we fly around, how physical we are. And then we create our own energy. Like, our bench energy is live, is connected, and our guys have fun playing with each other. I mean, this is like literally a group that plays for each other. We don't have one superstar that we play through. We've got, a collection of guys that are, that really complement each other. And so that's been the fun part for me, to, develop guys all the way around. So the last couple of years we had Tristan and Aruna, and he was just kind of a cut above the rest of our guys. And so we knew we would run through him. But now, we've got a collection of guys that help us night in and night out. There's been guys that stepped up, for us every night. Just depends on the situation.
Coach, one of the things, college football playoffs is getting to a point where the college football playoffs was a really big thing. But, before that, March Madness in the conference championships for basketball was the thing, and it still is. When when some of the at-large teams in the bigger conferences, they may get in, as Jay mentioned earlier, you guys in mid-majors have to win that conference tournament to get that at-large bid. How do you go about preparing your kids for, every single game is March Madness? So, people start, March Madness don't start like in March. It starts in these tournaments. So how do you approach that? How do you guys coach that that expectation level and trying to get it into the, tourney at 64?
Right, man. That's, when I first got here a couple years ago, man, that's something that I learned down the stretch, because we were in a similar situation where we were fighting for, the last regular season game of the year, we were playing for first place. And, man, mounting up to that, we knew we had to win out to have a chance to tie for first. And so that pressure started mounting, the month of February, every game out. You had to prepare like, it's win or go home. And so, the players at this level, they get used to it. And for us, you can't look too far ahead. Like, you have to really, really control what's ahead of you. Coming from the Big 12, 9 years in the Big 12, and, you do a great job in your league. You finish above 500 or right at 500. You're in the NCAA tournament. That you're just jockeying for a good seed, and it's a different look at this level. And, man, but what you see, though, is, man, these guys play so hard. They give it up for one another. And, man, I've got great appreciation for our players and, coaches at this level.
Coach, Saturday you've got a home game that I know you'd love to get a lot of the folks out to watch. Give us the pitch on why folks should come out Saturday and watch.
All right. So Wednesday night we're going to be at NKU, and we've got to take our show on the road. We got to beat NKU, and then when we come home Saturday, we need the Wolstein fired up. Okay, we've got some loyal fans. Our fan base has been showing up here lately, but man, we've got to have a great crowd for Saturday night, because Milwaukee, going down the stretch, Milwaukee will be a team. They gave us our first loss in conference play. Man, they're going to be a tough out for us, and we're going to need that home court advantage for sure.
Well, we'll make sure people get out there. Coach, we'll get you out of here on this one, but when I was making your bio for the graphic this morning, I looked at some of the previous stops you had coached, and you were at Iowa State before making your way over to Cleveland State, and your time at Iowa State lined up with Cleveland Cavaliers forward George Niang's time at Iowa State. So I was wondering if you could give us a little insight on the college minivan, what George was like back at Iowa State, and has anything he's done in the NBA surprised you at this point?
Man, nothing he's done in the NBA has surprised me. Man, this guy was the hardest worker that I ever seen. George he raised the level of everyone in the gym. He's a fearless leader. His confidence and his swag on game night was unreal. Man, we had some tough battles in the Big 12. Man, we knocked off number 1 Oklahoma that year. We beat Kansas that year, and George was, the kid. He was the Karl Malone forward of the year, and so he was the best power forward in college basketball. But I knew George was going to be have a long pro career because of how he worked in college. This guy would work out 3 times a day. He's a fierce competitor. I can't say enough about George. As a matter of fact, George was here at the Wolstein today getting shots up this morning.
Really?
He's a worker, man. He came in this morning at 10:30 and got shots in our oxygen.
But that's like, don't they got a facility or something, Jason? He just goes around and shoots at different gyms.
Well, if you don't want to go all the way to Independence,
wow,
he wants to stay
this
downtown.
man! Shout out to George, man.
Yeah, no, he's just. George is a great ambassador for. He was a great ambassador for Iowa State, and I know what he's doing here in Cleveland. He represents the organization and the community with the utmost. I got a ton of respect for him.
If George Niang was somehow eligible to play in college and committed to the Cleveland State Vikings right now, and you put current day George Niang on the Vikings, are we talking Final Four here, Coach?
Hey,
that's wild.
It wouldn't be out of question, because I would feed him down every time down. I would be saying, George, you got it, buddy. Whatever. He would make the right play.
The George Niang offense. Coach, it's been really fun to watch you this season, particularly during this winning streak. We're all pulling for you. We can't wait for the tournament, too.
Let's get to that tournament.
Cleveland State, we talked about this Friday. Cleveland State has had a nice little history of getting in the tournament and making their presence felt. We wish you nothing but the best this year, the rest of the regular season, into the conference tournament, and then hopefully into the NCAA tournament.
Hey, thanks for having us on, guys, and we appreciate your support. And we're looking forward to this last stretch of the season.
Yeah, Saturday night, get out and check them out.
Appreciate it.
Should be a lot of fun. The one thing that
thanks, Coach.
Thank you very much. I love to go back and look before a season, like once the season is over.
Yeah.
I love going back like in the NFL. Let me go look and see what the experts said about how the AFC North would play out. Mm-hmm. And there's always this, you couldn't see it coming. Who saw the Browns going 3-14? The media, or whoever voted on their poll, probably the coaches, had them 7th.
I love that about college sports, because you're going to find somewhere in college where you're just going to get a group of kids together and they're going to play hard and they're going to play tough, and they'll have no all-conference preseason guys, and then you look up, they're 21-3 or 21-4, and they're trying to get a bid. I love that about mid-major college sports, man.
Green Bay was picked first. Doug Gottlieb is in his first year as coach there, leaving his role as TV man behind him. And I don't think he's got a conference win, does he, Mike?
No, he's
He didn't as of late. They got one this weekend. I don't know, but
Yeah, I didn't look this weekend, but I think last week when I looked, I think they had no conference wins and were solidly in last place in the horizon.
That was an all-time great question, McNuggets. The fact that you said if you put the minivan on Cleveland State right now as constituted, are you a Final Four contender?
Be a damn good team.
listen, George Niang in college was an All-American. He's gotten better since then. I mean, he'd be one of the best players in the country,
And I'm going to ask Jason.
if not the best.
I'm going to ask him just to annoy him. Hey, man, how much hypothetically would George
Jason loves hypotheticals.
What would George Niang's the minivan stat line be right now at Cleveland State?
28, 8, and 8.
He'd be the Luka Doncic.
That's right. He'd be Luka.
Guys, real quick.
I was surprised he's over there shooting in their gym.
That's awesome.
That's wild.
He probably lives downtown and didn't want to go to
That's
And
crazy.
we tell you all the time, George is the best dude, legitimately the nicest, best dude. It doesn't surprise me in the least bit in terms of doing that and giving back. If you're not a member of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show, become a member for $1.99 a month. You can become a starters tier member. That gets you these special custom emojis in the chat. For $4.99 a month, you get all the same tiers and perks as a coach starters tier member, plus daily overtime content that you can't see if you're not a member. So make sure you guys do that. Do you want to talk guards or you want to talk about Reggie the Cavs' secret weapon before we get to Super Chat?
I think the guards is a better Cleveland Sports Show topic. Yours was a fun topic. Hell, we might be able to do both.
Let's do guards real quick.
Yeah.
AL Central favorites still, or does the Tigers' re-signing of Jack Flaherty boost them ahead of the Guardians in terms of who you think will win the Central this season?
Well, I don't think the Tigers are their stiffest competition, so I would that it doesn't change my view. I think it's the Royals and the Guardians fighting it out this year for the division. The Tigers obviously are good, and the Flaherty signing really bolsters their rotation behind Skubal. I just like the Royals lineup up and down, and I like their frontline starter, Cole Reagans, and Bubic moving into the rotation after being in a bullpen role last year. I just think Kansas City is going to be really it's going to be a fun division, really.
Jay,
There's 4
I don't
teams.
think there's a division in baseball that's this tight.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that.
Like the White Sox, you could throw the White Sox out.
Yeah,
but
the other 4.
The other 4, to me, I don't know that there's going to be 4 or 5 games that separate first from fourth. And there is nothing that can happen with the first 4 order that would surprise me. If Minnesota won it, if Detroit won it, Kansas City, Cleveland, none of that would surprise me. None of it would surprise me if either of those 4 teams finished 4th in the division.
In their newspapers or their publications right now in those other cities, Minnesota is selling, hey, the Guardians, I think they got a little bit worse this year. Kansas City, I think we could catch all those cities. Yeah. They're saying, look, we got a shot here. Now the Guardians, I would give them, becoming, because they're the incumbent and they won last year, I would give them a little bit of an edge. But Royals got some nice young talent. The Tigers came, and I think the Tigers going to be confident in the way that they played the Guardians at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting to see how Vogt does it the second year, and which one of these young dudes going to step up, because that's to me is the question mark.
Yeah, I don't know that I would pick the Guardians. Like on an all-in bet, and I had to pick one, I don't know that it would be the Guardians, just because we've talked about this on the show. It's really hard to make any kind of a case that they're the team they were last year.
Yeah,
that you took their second best bat off of the team, and I know that you replaced him with a guy who's a big question mark, older. Could Carlos have another year like he did last year? I suppose the odds are against that. But even if he does, defensively up the middle, I think that teams that are great are always strong defensively up the middle. You lost the best infielder defensively in baseball. Now, Jimenez's bat, you can easily improve on what he was giving you offensively, but you know that you're going to have the first half of this year without Shane Bieber. Last year they went into the season, they didn't know that. And also David Fry is going to be unavailable until, June or July-ish?
Yeah.
So I think it's really hard to make a case that the Guardians are better than they were last year. But the Tigers, to me, will be a year older, a year more seasoned. I think Skubal is poised to become this guy that could line up the Cy Youngs. Yeah. He's that good, and he proved it in the playoffs when he had to. And you mentioned Kansas City's lineup. What team wouldn't love, other than the Dodgers, wouldn't love to have Kansas City's lineup? It's incredible.
I do think the Guardians' rotation could be much improved this year. Gavin Williams, if he's healthy for a full year.
Yeah.
A real wild card to me with Cleveland's pitching is Tristan McKenzie. And what version
Have
are
you heard
getting?
anything about?
He's healthy. I mean, as healthy as you can be with what he's dealt with. They feel like his stuff was good. He needs to trust his stuff and attack the zone. That he was maybe nibbling. Maybe it was because of the injury that he was nibbling a bit. If he can get back to throwing strikes, he makes a massive difference in that rotation. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but if you can plug in a healthy Tristan, along with Tanner Bybee, along with Gavin Williams, and some of the moves that they've made, this rotation could be significantly better this year than it was last year.
So he never had surgery. Has
Correct.
that affected his velocity, the pitches he throws?
He had a great curve last year. He was throwing a dynamite curve.
His fastball velocity was down
It was
when
down.
he first injured the elbow.
Yeah, it was down.
And he never got it back to where it was.
So, and that's like, I think you can make the case and say he probably should have had the surgery. But, I mean, we're at the point now where it is what it is. So we'll have to see when he shows up at Goodyear and see what he looks like. But if he can figure this out, and it's a big if, but if he can figure it out, he would be an enormous boost to this rotation. I don't know how you can count on him right now. I think
whatever you get from him is a bonus.
And I think by some of the moves that you saw them make, they know that they can't necessarily count on him to be a front of the rotation type guy. But if he does figure out how to pitch with this, he'd be an enormous boost.
Yeah, I think if we're playing the if game, I would say if Shane Bieber comes back and is Shane Bieber. I mean, I think back to his last start, which he was clearly hurt.
Yep. Pitching through excruciating pain.
And was dominating. He dominated his first two starts. He was dominating his second. I remember when they pulled him, he was visibly upset in the dugout. Now, maybe it was because he had re-injured his elbow.
I think it was he was pitching through pain.
Clearly was pitching in pain. If he could, and you don't know. I mean, you don't know what that surgery is going to do, and you don't know how a rehab and all that's what it's going to take out of him. But if Shane Bieber can return to form, and Tristan McKenzie can return to form. These are two front of the rotation guys who a couple of years ago were in the top 5 favorites to win the Cy Young in the American League. But as we all know, there are so many things that have to fall in place when you're anybody but the Dodgers. When the Dodgers literally are operating on your premise, Operation Stockpile.
They're not playing either.
You can make an argument that they're the most improved team in baseball.
Jason said,
and they won the World Series.
I want to see what you said. Jason and Bull said this. He said they got 5 number 1 starters.
They do. At least 5 top of the rotation starters.
That's why.
They do.
I have never heard ever.
It's Operation Stockpile.
You got 5 number 1s.
And so, I mean, I love baseball. You guys know that. I try to get excited every year about maybe this is the year that the long drought ends. I've never been less excited about that because what you're basically playing for is to win the division and to make the playoffs, and if you're really lucky, you'll get the right to lose to the Dodgers in the World Series. I cannot see, as I'm sitting here on February 3rd, I can't see a world that the Dodgers don't repeat. And that's bad for baseball.
We did a whole story about getting this guy from Japan and maybe what dollars add up.
Sasaki.
It's like, nah, we saw what y'all do. Operation
I never get excited about those conversations. That never happens in
and
Cleveland.
then I wake up, they're like, oh, yeah, the Dodgers got him. And then listen, and now they got this new Shohei Ohtani move. Everybody want to defer dollars. They've been paying him in annuities next year. Like, yeah, his contract is $1. I'm like, this is cheating.
Well, what does he get? $68 million deferred every year or something ridiculous
crazy.
like that?
How did they let you do that? That's crazy.
Well, when you're the best pitcher and one of the best hitters.
And he's going to pitch this year?
I think so. Yeah, that's the intention.
Ohtani
I don't know why they would, to be honest. Maybe I would hold him until August. And just get him in shape for the playoffs and let him do his thing in October.
I ain't been gambling. I might put some money down. I might say they're going to get over 110 wins.
I've heard people say 120 is not out of the question.
Crazy. That's crazy.
And now, as good as they were last year, could you imagine if they would have had a Shohei Ohtani in their rotation last year?
Silly, Jay.
You're chewing up everybody in your path.
Where are they getting this money from?
We got super chats, and I'm guessing the Dodgers must get a gajillion super chats a day to pay for that roster. That's the only explanation I can think of. But our super chats today, EJ says, shout out to G. Bush. He warned us that this was going to happen 3 to 4 years ago and has continued to hint that Myles will be looking to finish career elsewhere due to this team's dysfunction. Christopher Waits says, Deshaun Watson cost us 5 first-round picks. The 3 we traded to Houston, Baker Mayfield, and now Myles Garrett.
Hey,
Send Andrew Berry to Uranus.
What?
What?
Get ready for this. Get ready for this. This Deshaun Watson collateral damage is going to float around on Twitter. It's going to be crazy. They're going to be like, Deshaun Watson caused us to lose the Browns back in '99. You didn't even know that. It was part of it.
People, they saw it coming.
It's coming.
Art knew it was coming. He tried to save us from the misery.
EJ also says, I trade Myles to the Lakers for Luka Doncic. Christopher Waite
Now that's
says,
funny.
Dan Sorensen's helmet hit on Rashad Higgins or Anthony Schwartz quitting on his route. Which of those were the biggest catalyst for the mess we are in today?
That is such. I mean, when you talk about reach, this is the reach God himself. That, like the Sorensen hit, if it doesn't happen on Hollywood Higgins and he scores that touchdown, he's saying that we beat the Chiefs. If we beat the Chiefs, that means that they're favored going into the Super Bowl, right? Who did the Chiefs eventually play?
Well, they still would have had to win the
They
AFC
still got to go
Championship
to the
game.
AFC title game.
Yeah.
And they would have found a way to Cleveland that.
I'm just who
A fumble,
Who did the Chiefs
a
play?
drive.
Was it the Bengals or it was the Bills?
I think it was the Bills.
It was the Bills in that great game, right?
The Schwartz quitting on the route, I've long thought about that because that's what led to Baker separating his shoulder and everything else. But I'm telling you, the stuff with Baker goes well beyond the shoulder. Well beyond the separated shoulder.
We need that book. We need that book.
Next super chat, DBDog21 says, it's crazy to say the Browns are more than just a quarterback away. Went to the playoffs with 5. Fixed quarterback team gets better. I wonder what Myles Garrett thinks the answer to winning is. Guess he saw the plan and decided he wanted to trade.
Yeah, I wish I could have. I wish I could have bugged that room when they said, "What's the trade? What is his plan?"
What if they trade him to the Saints?
That's worse. He has. Oh, that's terrible. That's bad. What are you going to do down there?
Isn't it to the Browns' benefit to trade him to an awful team so they get better draft picks?
Is an awful team going to give up 2 number
Everything.
1? You need to find
you got to be the player away, like you said.
You
Dallas.
need to find a middle team that
Is either
there's some
desperate-
variance there, from the Browns' perspective. That
Yeah.
Hey,
Do you
do
still
not
think it'll be 2-1s?
I think they get 2.
Because our initial reaction earlier today was 2 first-round draft picks.
I think they
G.
get
Bush
2
thinks
ones.
it'll be 3.
do not.
I don't think they're getting 3. I think you can get 2.
Listen, we holding out for 3. Holding out.
Wait. What about that foot issue? That was an issue, and then he was going to have it fixed in the offseason. If you're a team that's trading for Myles,
I'm going to bring it up.
you're going to certainly put him through the physical ringer.
Failed physicals have killed trades in the past.
They have, absolutely.
So, and he's had enough injuries that a team that's willing, that would have to give him a new deal, that would have to give up the picks for him to get him, they would be very specific in that physical.
Well, they want to know that those feet are okay.
Checking the shoulder, checking the feet.
Any team that has a great pass rusher already, call us. Because if you got one pass rusher and you had Myles Garrett, that could put you over the top, bro.
We have 4 more super chats. Chris Fox says, Luka and Jokic's games don't require being in great shape. These next 2 are similar. I'll read them together. The first one's from Christopher Waits. The second one's from Slow Motion 216. Christopher says, let's remember that Myles was literally winless in the NFL until Baker Mayfield stepped on the field. How ironic. And Slow Motion 216 said, we went 0-16 and 3-14 with Myles. He made no difference in wins. He's a waste of money going forward. Glad he requested a trade. He didn't change the culture. Baker did.
It's the classic axe to grind. You don't want to be here. So I don't like you. I've never liked you.
Yeah, well, I was going to break up with you anyhow.
What are you talking about? I thought it had ran its course anyway.
And then you tell all your friends, no, we mutually decided it wasn't working.
Man, listen, I told her, let's just keep being friends. You know what I'm saying? We started off friends. Let's end friends,
I don't know how you guys feel on this. I will miss Myles and his excitement and what he brings to the defense. I will miss that greatly.
I miss plays.
For him, I hope that he goes to a situation that's much better for him. A guy like that, you need to see play in Super Bowls. You just do. I think back to Aaron Donald, who in my lifetime, I remember Lawrence Taylor too, but in my lifetime, at peak Aaron Donald was the guy that won the Rams the Super Bowl with all of those huge plays at the end of the Super Bowl to beat the Bengals. Myles deserves to be on that stage, and I hope for him he gets it. I firmly believe he never would have had that opportunity here in Cleveland. We are light years away from being where we need to be to get this team to a Super Bowl. So I hope for him he gets to that place. Now, my hope for the Browns is we get this huge basket of picks that we hit on every single one of them that turn us into the team we want to be.
Last super chat from RMac Dog says, do you think Myles is trying to force the Browns to draft the quarterback he likes, plus give him a max contract?
Could be.
Could be.
No,
But
Myles isn't in the game of scouting quarterbacks.
Yeah. Or I don't think extorting it. Like somebody hit me up after the trade news and said, "Is this his way of getting a new contract?" I don't
He's
think.
going to get that without.
Yeah, I just don't think he would do that.
We'll see you in overtime. Peace.
What's our topic?
Reggie the dog.